back with you, Sam.
Oh, Kate, I can't believe the week has gone by so quickly. It's
Yeah,
gone
as they
so
do.
fast.
The weeks fly by, don't they?
They do, they do. I think we're all so busy. Where do the days go?
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like I'm still getting over the shock of it being 2023, and yet we're mid-July already. So it's just, I think, getting used to the fact that, yeah, the busier we are, the more time flies, and it's just how it goes. And we just have to, I think, um, I find myself just breathing a lot and going, okay, yes. What can I do in this moment? Like trying, not so much trying to slow time down, but trying to be in the moment. That's the
Mm.
only mechanism I know of to counter this manic feeling of time slipping through your fingers.
Yeah, don't you think and I know we do this as coaches. We try and get, our clients to project themselves into the future and think about what they're working towards. The
Mm,
problem is that if you do that too much, I think you miss where you are right now.
mm. So true. Yeah. Yeah, so breathing and just grounding into the moment, thinking, what can I do? What's the next? Like having that clear prioritization of activities every day about these are the things I have to get done today, and
Yeah.
yeah, and just making sure that you're focusing on those things. And I know we all have days where we're running from one thing to the other, and we feel like we're not getting onto the important things. That's a common feeling. Yeah, and and I think just keep bringing it back to I think a mantra that's helped me a lot over the years has been there is more than enough time to do everything that needs to get done. Like just giving yourself that reassurance
Mm.
every time you breathe, you find yourself stressing out, in that sort of panicked mode. I just breathe and think and say to myself, there's more than enough time to do everything I need to do. And that really calms my nervous system. Yeah.
It's interesting how words can do that for you. Mine's really simple. I think um, I don't need. I'm too basic. I don't know. I just tell myself when I get up in the morning, and sometimes as soon as I wake up, depending on what sort of day I've had the day before, I'm dragging all of that stuff into the next day about,
Mm,
yesterday didn't work out the way I wanted it to. And so now I've got 10 more things I've got to try and plow through today.
mm,
But I find if I can stop myself really quickly and say, I'm going to have a good day today, and
mm,
that resets everything that's going on. And it's so
mm-hmm,
simple. But I
mm.
don't even know why it works, but it does.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is just those simple mindset shifts, isn't it? And really trusting that it's having that trust that there is well, I find this comfort in knowing that no matter what our mind thinks it has to do with all its to-do lists and, tick boxes, and there is some kind of force that's got our back and it's going to be okay. And
Yeah.
I think if you can really drop into that and trust that that's always the case. I still struggle with it because, we've talked about this before about being hardwired to hustle growing up,
Hmm.
and nothing gets done unless you work for it. But that real feeling of being that I know we talked about in a recent episode about creating that space in your day to be, because that actually has a way of um, doing magical things with time somehow. Like the
Yes.
less we rush and the more we slow down, the more we allow for magic to unfold. And that's really, I think, the sweet spot that you and I have experienced, where if you can get into that place of trust and knowing that it's all going to be okay and it's fine, and create space. Like even just taking the dog for a walk, I know my mind's going, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. But I know now I sort of have a peace with it. I think, no, this time is good. I'm creating space and what needs to happen will happen. And yeah, yeah, it's an interesting way of being.
Yeah, I think there's lots of talk, for years now about this, the morning routine and having that
Mm.
$1 million morning routine and, the morning routine of the, you know, 8-figure business owner and all those sorts of things.
Mm.
Morning routine is very, very personal. You can't
Yes.
copy someone else's morning routine and think you're going to copy their success.
Yeah.
But I really do believe in listening to the universe. And so I
Mm.
consciously put things out into the universe, and it's simple things that I put out to the universe. Like, for example, this morning when I was doing, the school drop off,
Mm.
and sometimes that's really manic, that
Stressful.
time of
Mm.
day, with crazy people on the roads trying to get to work on time and trying to get kids to school on time, and so sometimes drivers aren't great. I'll say that really politely. There's some terrible drivers out there in school run time. But I always deliberately, let that one car in, and just do little things
Mm.
when I'm driving, because I always think to myself, this is my karma going out to the universe,
Mm.
and the universe will look after me and make sure I get where I've got to go and get home safely. And
So true.
when I hear myself say it, I'm like, it's a little bit silly, but I don't
How did you
know.
arrive? How did you arrive at that point, Sam?
Of being consciously doing this.
Mm.
Oh, I think it's just, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that
Mm.
one. I think it was me noticing that when I remained calm and in tune
Mm.
and aware of what was going on around me, and I was able to interact with what was going on around me in a positive way,
Mm.
I felt like things calmed down.
Mm-hmm.
Because that one person that I let in front of me, for example, that could make a big difference to their day,
Mm-hmm.
because they might be the one that's in this really heightened state of anxiety because they've got to be somewhere. And, when you've got a big line of cars and you can't get in, you know
It's
what it's like
stressful.
when finally that one person
Yes, it's
lets you.
amazing.
Yeah. So it's
Mm.
little things like that. And I think if I can do those little things for people throughout my day, which make no, they don't impact me greatly,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
but I feel like the sum of all those actions,
Mm.
the universe gives that back to me in funny little ways.
Mm. It's a beautiful way of living. And I mean, I know I read Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. It must have been, probably 8 years ago at least now. And I remember at the time thinking, this is so powerful and it's so true. And truth resonates when you read it or hear it, doesn't it? So I knew
Mhm.
that his
Yes.
book was really powerful and I took away a lot of nuggets and it did shift me. But then you find yourself slipping back into these human ways of with the monkey mind but
Mhm.
there's a difference between reading a book like that and understanding that yes, it's true and that's how we could all be, and there's but the difference between knowing that and actually living it. So I love to hear
Yeah.
how you're doing that, and I think I'm similar in the way that intuitively we know that when you are in the present moment, things have a way of taking care of themselves. But it's
Mm.
just a real challenge quieting the monkey mind, isn't it? That's always giving you a
Yeah.
hard time for creating the space or slowing down. It's a constant inner battle. So, yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I I actually really like that, Kate. Maybe I'm consciously slowing down, because I feel like I was going so fast for so long, and it's exhausting doing
Mm,
that, especially when I had all 5 kids at home.
mm,
That, like you say, I was literally running from one thing to the next, and that burnt me out. It really
mm,
did. So it's all about being very self-aware and slowing myself down,
mm,
and feeling for the other people around me that might be experiencing, that pressure.
mm. Yeah. And I know you're usually in a rush as well because you're juggling a million
Yeah.
things. And so you're basically putting out to the universe how you want to be treated. And that's sort
Yeah.
of, yeah, you're treating other people that way, and you're finding that it's being returned to you, just that intention and that way of showing up for other people. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It's
And
it's
so,
it's an easy thing to do. It's an easy thing to practice. So,
yeah, yeah, it requires mindfulness. It requires catching yourself in the moment and pulling yourself back and breathing or having a mantra or something just to ground you back into that energy. Yeah.
yes. I think in particular when my kids started driving themselves, I was very conscious of the fact, and like this already, but you don't know it. So
Mm,
when they started driving and had to start telling them to slow down, and
mm,
I remember I was always, and I've said this to the first four, I've still got one that's yet to start driving,
mm.
but I remember I was always saying it's better to be 5 minutes late than to not arrive at all.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
better to slow down and be late than to get into an accident and not
Mm,
get where you're going. So I think I said that enough times that I've had to really take that on board and live my life that way.
mm. That's really good. And my dad, I'm lucky that I grew up with a father who he's not religiously inclined at all, but he's just naturally very Zen and Buddhist. So
Yeah.
just in the way he approaches life, and he used to and he was a busy man running an engineering consultancy, and he had 30 employees, and he was always highly, highly, productive or busy, but when we were driving, he would always just take his time. He would slow down for the traffic lights. And he would always say to us, when a car would zoom past us, and he'd say, we'll see him at the next traffic lights, don't worry. And then sure enough, we'd pull up at the next traffic lights, and this guy that's just sped past us, or girl, is sitting there, and Dad just sort of, he's slow and steady wins the race, if you speed and go hammer for tongs, whatever the expression is, you don't actually get there any quicker or any better. And actually, you could be, like you said, causing problems for yourself by not turning up at
Mm.
all. So, yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Slowing down is not always meaning that you're getting the outcome slower. It's just you're
No, that's
choosing.
right.
Hmm.
Kate, oh my goodness. All those years of listening to the story of the tortoise and the hare.
That's right.
And it's like we have to live as the tortoise, right? Because
Yeah.
the
And
hare
yet,
doesn't win.
the hare doesn't win, and yet we're so programmed to act like the hare. And we wear
We
this
are.
busy badge like it's a badge of honor. Oh, so busy, and everyone's so busy. But yeah, that's another real mindset shift I've had to consciously be aware of. If someone says, "How are you?" I say, "I'm really well," and they say, "Are you busy?" And I say, "Oh, yeah, I'm productive." I just,
Yeah.
and um, I refuse to say busy because it's just that whole hare mentality, isn't it? It means you're flapping around like a crazy person, potentially not doing much positive at all. So I prefer to just say, and even I feel myself when I say the word productive, it just calms me. It means maybe I'm not busy, but
Mm.
what I'm doing is productive in the moment. Mm.
Yes, because productivity is associated with achievement, isn't it? Whereas busy is associated with being frantic.
Yeah, yeah. And is it an interesting that we also feel well, I feel compelled to say productive because that means maybe it's my way of saying I'm still achieving. It's just
Yeah.
interesting the words we choose and what it says about our culture and our inner state, isn't it? Yeah. So
Very much.
anyway, so yes, that all started with the comment that time's flying by. But Sam, you and I decided today that we would love to talk about starting a business from scratch and what are the things that
Mm.
are really required, because we know that there are so many ladies that we work with that and who are listening to this podcast that are starting a business from scratch. And we've talked before about managing expectations, about how long that realistically takes. And yeah, we thought that would be a good question to answer. What would you and I do if we were to start our business from scratch right now? Um, and it's not that long ago since you and I have restarted on iteration 3 or 4, but
Yes.
um,
Yes.
Yeah, and it just has confirmed to me that it's just important to get the basic rights and to have expectations about how long that takes. And so, yeah, you and I were discussing a particular client I have who wants to monetize some content that she puts out, and I think as first-time business owners, there's this expectation that you're going to earn good money in the first year. And as we've talked about before, that's not the reality if you're starting from scratch. So, um, Sam, what would you do if you're starting a business from scratch right now? What are the essentials that you would get up and running right away?
Essentials. The
Hmm.
first thing that I would do is figure out what it is exactly that I'm going to sell. Just one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the mistakes I see people make is thinking that they're entering a marketplace and they have to compete and make the playing field level. And that means, oh, well, such and such that does the same thing as I do, they're offering X, Y, and Z. I'll have to do that too. I say no to that.
Hmm.
I say choose one thing, one product or service you're going to sell, and make that the best you can make it.
Hmm.
So that's my number one tip to start with.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to
You
go
might,
on. Yeah.
I was going to say, do you want me to keep going or do you want to get
Oh
your
no,
number
no,
one in
no.
there?
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. It seemed. Sorry, it looked like you were going to go on to number two, but but no, I totally agree with that. Figuring out that one thing that you can offer, and that's actually how I got started myself. I had one program that I was offering, and it was very clear what the promise was. This was back nearly 10 years ago, but it was called Blissful Clarity. And it was just a program
Oh,
designed to help women get clear on what they wanted, where they want to go. Because I was living in an expat community at the time with lots of women who had left their careers to follow their spouses. And that actually worked really well. I was totally surprised that when I'd done marketing courses, so I knew exactly what you said, that this is important. You need to go out to market with one specific offering that's very clear about what the transformation is. So, where are these people now? And what's the promise of your program? Where are you going to take them at the end of that offering? And can they make an
mm,
emotional connection to that endpoint that you're defining for them? And so me putting out there, it was. I still remember the Facebook post. It was, God, my brand, my graphic. What do you call it? Graphic design skills were terrible back then, but the messaging was clear. So yeah, the title "Blissful Clarity." It was find your purpose, take those next steps, something like that. But it resonated with at least a good 5 to 6 women who reached out and said, I need that, I want that. And I still remember
mm,
that feeling of accepting money for doing something I love that felt so strange, because how could you get money for something that feels so easy, that you love so much?
yeah,
And yeah, but so that was that whole shifting into actually operating, thinking, okay, this is real. I'm running a business. People are paying me for something I'm giving them. So I 100% agree with you, getting that one offer super clear and making sure it's compelling. Um, and would you say, when you said that you don't need to go and do what all your competitors are doing, are you talking there about a point of difference or your unique selling position in the market? What did you mean by that comment?
yes. I've recently come to the conclusion that I want to eliminate from startups, I want to eliminate the initial competitive research, which I know that you and I have been advocates for quite
Mm,
some time.
mm-hmm.
But we've also witnessed people crumble when they start
Yes.
looking at their competitors
Mm-hmm.
because the imposter syndrome drowns them and they end up pulling the pin on taking the steps that they need to actually get started, which is
Mm-hmm.
devastating. I hate that people feel so insignificant in particularly in overburdened marketplaces. So I've switched from competitor research, which is something we can do a little bit further down the track, to really focus on developing and articulating what it is that is unique about what you do or what you sell. And I think we gloss over that too easily. And I think there is so much value in understanding what makes you special. That understanding that is the biggest confidence boost that you can get as a startup. So I'm really trying to shine a light on working out what that is with people.
It's a really interesting point because I know that traditional marketing courses always tell you to start with the target market, listening to their needs,
Mm-hmm.
figuring out what their pain points and so on, which is critical. However, what you're saying is you actually need to start with what your gift is, your zone of genius. Like,
Yeah.
what's that special thing you can give someone that, and then finding people that have that particular problem. Mm,
Yes, it is the bridge we need to build because
mm,
on one side there is the business owner and their unique selling proposition and their product, and on the other side of the bridge are the customers that you've got to find, and you've got to build, I believe, the side that you're standing on first,
mm,
which I think it is a little bit of a shift from what traditional you know business training tells you to do. But
mm,
I've found in my experience that people that are focusing on the other stuff, on the customer and everything first, lose sight of what it is that makes them special and lose sight of their gift a little bit.
mm,
And then they're out of alignment.
mm-hmm. That's a really good point. Yeah, because as you and I have discussed before, business flow is all about alignment. Yeah, and knowing, yeah, operating in your zone of genius, exactly in the sweet spot where what you do is really valuable, but it comes to you easily and naturally, and it's a skill set that other people don't have, and so therefore they're happy to pay good money for it. So yeah, I love that. And we've talked before about the business world shifting, and all the traditional
Mm.
business books from MBAs and so on. It's all about the market and what the market needs. But you're right, we do lose sight in there um, of yourself and what your unique thing is to offer. Yeah, and so I think that's why that exercise was really powerful that you and I used to help clients with around this defining their superpowers.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think, I had a train of thought there, Kate. So I believe that we've got to be doing things differently because when we focus on the target market first,
Mm,
you're trying to engineer your why to suit the target market.
mm,
And that's where I think people don't actually get that why statement
mm.
articulated in a way that just hits them right where it's supposed to. It's a
Yes.
very surface level why because they're trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole.
Mm-hmm. Which brings the
So I
misalignment.
feel like we've
Yeah.
got to reverse engineer that.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. And so once you're really clear on, well, firstly, I just want to acknowledge what you said about the competitor research. It's really sad, isn't it? And we've seen this happen over and over with clients where the whole activity of researching your competitors can be really inspiring because you can look at them and see that what they're doing is good, but you would do it differently and better. Like, it can go that way where you can get inspired and learn from them or get ideas from your competitors. But then, as you said, it does go the other way where it can really send you into imposter syndrome really quickly and your
Yeah.
confidence goes down. And the problem with competitor research is you're comparing yourself with people who are, if there's 100 steps to building a business, they might be on step number 50 or 60 or 70, and you're down at number one, and yet you're comparing yourself to them. So it's not a fair comparison, but you just give up because you think, oh, it's too hard, and they're already doing it so well.
That's
Mm,
right. If we think about competition, and to me, when I think competition, I'm thinking about sport because I grew up playing sport. In sport, you compete against people who are categorized in a similar way to you. So, when you're in under 10s, you're not playing,
Mm,
seniors, that sort of thing.
mm,
But this is where we go wrong with competitor research. Like you said, you're in under 10s, you're the startup, and you're comparing yourself to and trying to compete with established businesses.
mm,
They've had years to get things right. They've had years to set things up. They've
mhm.
had years to iterate, like we
Yep.
know we've had
Yep.
to do. They've had time on their side to do all of that. And then, you tell a startup to do competitor research, and unless they've done some inner work and some mindset work first and they've got robust confidence in what they want to do, the competitor research crushes them.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point actually. I've definitely noticed that, and I always tell clients when, and I before we do the competitor research, I tell them about the imposter syndrome and so on, but I still have been getting them to do it. So I like your approach about just not getting them to do that until until I think once you've done the work to get to know your superpowers, how you're different, the unique genius that you have to offer, be really clear and solid in that, and then maybe go and see what your competitors are doing, but because guaranteed they won't be doing it in a way that is identical to your genius. Mm.
Yeah, and again, Kate, it's all about the words that we tell ourselves, and
Mm.
that really affects the lens in which we look at things. So if you've got real confidence in this business idea because you're really clear about your USP and your why and those sorts of things, and then you go and do competitor research, you're bringing with it a whole different mindset, because straight away
Mm.
you can look at those competitors and go, well, they haven't got this that I've got, and it's a totally different way of looking at your competitors. And in that respect, that's when competitor research is highly valuable,
Mm. Because
because it's
the
going to
whole
reinforce everything you know about yourself.
yeah, and the whole point with competitor research, I think, is about finding that little spot in the market that you can sit that's different to the others, that addresses a need of the particular person you're trying to help. And that's where it can be very validating, because okay, they're over there and I'm here, and the other, there is a spot for me here, and I can muscle my way
Yeah.
in. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so step one is getting super clear, a one very clear, specific offering that you can go to market with that solves a specific pain point, that gets a certain outcome that people can resonate and with and want to pay good money for. So what would you say is next?
Next, look, this is a problem we know. Another thing where pricing, getting clear on your pricing. I think that we also need a new approach to that. Well, not a new approach, but I think we need to more readily accept the approach of pricing based on value.
Mm-hmm.
I know because, you and I both work a lot with service-based businesses, and there is such an attachment to charging by the hour. And then on top of that, the business owner is then feeling very vulnerable to no's in sales conversations, because straight away they feel like, oh, the market doesn't think that my time is valuable at that hourly rate. So I think when you pull your product together and you understand the value that it offers, that's the way to price it, and
Yes. Yeah.
avoid doing anything that ties you to an hourly rate.
Hmm. It's interesting because I had that awful feeling the other day when I quoted someone for a strategy workshop for their core messaging and their brand positioning and their marketing strategy. And I know that coming out of that 2 hours together, they'll have some really good, clear messaging. They'll know what they're going to do to as an overall strategic marketing plan. And I had a double take when I sent the proposal. I thought, oh gosh, is that too much? And then I had to give myself a little talk and say, no, like getting that stuff right is so valuable, and it's worth what I'm charging, that it's the value that they're going to get from those 2 hours for me that's going to set them up and allow them to generate revenue. So, no, damn it, that's what it's worth. And you're right, it's getting away from time, because if you were to calculate that back to your hourly rate, yeah, you'd think, gosh, who do I think I am? But it's the
Mm.
value you bring, um, and what that's worth to another business. That is where you have to sit as a business owner. Mm.
Yes,
Because,
and also tying your pricing to price by the hour is really putting a cap on your earning potential as well,
mm,
because everybody only has a limited amount of hours in which they can work.
yeah, yeah, and it's just not possible to generate good revenue on an hourly if you're charging out on an hourly rate. That's right. If
Mm.
when you look at the different business models available. Yeah, so that's a beautiful point. Making sure you charge the value as opposed to the time you're spending, and I think that comes with confidence as well, doesn't it? The longer
Yeah.
you're in business and you're seeing the impact that your work has on other people and what that's worth to them, it helps you really sit in that space. Whereas starting out, it can feel, you've got to go through that journey of charging initially for time, and feeling the resentment when you don't feel you're being valued for what you're offering. I think that's when you start getting to the point where you and I are, where we've done all the different pricing strategies, and to me, you always know when you're charging too little or too much by how it feels in your body. And so if you're charging too little and you're feeling resentful and you just really don't want to do the work for that client because it doesn't feel like a good energy exchange, that's a sign you're charging too little. And alternatively, if it's making you, if it's sending you into, what's the word, imposter syndrome, or triggering your value, your sense of value of yourself, then you could be charging too much for where your confidence level is at that time. So it's a really difficult, it's like a sliding scale, isn't it? But you've got to find that sweet spot where you think, yep, I am worth this much money. Take it or leave it, Yeah.
Yes. And one thing we both know is absolutely true, and this is an old one, this isn't a new one, this isn't controversial, this is just true, is that also when you don't charge enough, the old saying of if you don't value yourself highly, nobody else will, is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely true. Because
Mm.
when you are undercharging and you attract the people that are very money focused
Yeah.
and very price oriented,
Yes. Yeah.
they're the troublesome people.
They are.
They're
And
the
they never,
ones that will they're not going to be happy.
yeah. Yeah, they question everything and they question the value you're bringing. So, yeah, you've got to let those ones go. And you and I know the ones that are happy to pay, and they are great clients. They do the work. They show up because they value your time. They understand they're getting value. They're the ones you want to be working with. That's right. So once you've got
Yeah.
your offer clear, your pricing strategy that feels really good, um, going to market is obviously important, and starting with the low hanging fruit, right? I mean, just reaching out to your local networks and your own social media. And I would start um, different things in parallel. So once I think you're really clear about your brand, who you are, what you offer, then is the right time to go out networking, building relationships, just getting connected with people out there in the business world and understanding the market, talking, connecting with other businesses. And you and I have discussed this before. I would start building a list in order. So I would be, which I recommend to all new clients, have something of high value for free that you can offer that invites people onto your email database. So having that freebie, I've seen you've put out a new one lately, Sam. I've got one called the Business
Yeah.
Builder's Handbook. What's the one you've put out recently?
My latest and greatest is called Are You Ready to Start a Business?
Right. So even figuring that out, that's a great,
Yeah.
yeah, because people come into your website, being startups, would love to know, am I ready to start a business? So they'll download that
Yeah.
freebie, get onto your email database, and then you can start nurturing and communicating with them. And this is
Yeah.
just so critical, and so many people skip over this part. And I'm amazed that business owners that have been in business for 5, 10 years still don't do this, what I call value-led marketing. It's like offer something for free, get them on your database, start the relationship, get educating them about what you do, how you can help, and being on their radar. And that's the next step I always recommend. Yeah, get that freebie together that you can offer. Put a little QR code on your business card if you need, where they can go sign up, download the freebie, and then you can start nurturing that relationship through your email marketing. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
absolutely, Kate. This isn't a new thing.
No.
It's just a different way of doing. This is the online version of going to the supermarket and taste testing a sausage
Mm-hmm.
or taste testing a piece of cheese
Mm-hmm.
from the person that's set up there in the shop to give away those freebies, to give away
Mm-hmm.
those taste tests. You go to the ice cream shop and you can taste test the ice cream. It's about getting people to try your product, and
Mm.
that is part of the customer journey for when they become buyers.
Mm.
So this is just the digital version
Mm-hmm.
of giving away a little piece of cheese, or
Yep.
some sort of a little taste of ice cream on a wooden stick.
Mm-hmm. That's such a good analogy. Yeah, when you go to the supermarket and a company has invested, maybe $1,000 to have someone sit there for the day and churn through about 10 blocks of cheese, just offering everybody whatever. But they do it because it works. People go and buy the product. I mean, I
Yeah,
do it when I taste it. I'm like, that's good. And I put one in my trolley. So it's a common sense, good foundational marketing tactic, isn't it? And you're right. It's the digital version of that. And
it is. And
mm,
here's the thinking, because I know this happens to me when I take that freebie. When I've taste tested something, I don't do it if it's horrible,
mm.
but if it's nice, I'll be like, sure, I'll
Hmm.
buy. I'll
Yeah.
buy something, because it's a really easy, low investment.
Yes.
On a different scale, but the same preposition, is wine tasting.
That's right.
You go to a winery and they will crack the bottles and let you taste,
Hmm.
because they know that they're going to lose X amount of wine, but the sales are going to more than compensate for that.
Absolutely. It's a percentage you spend in order to get the certain revenue, and it's possibly around 10%, that you're spending in order
Mm.
to generate 100% revenue. Yeah. So it's a very smart tactic. And I don't understand why more
Yeah.
people aren't doing it. It's such a golden opportunity with all the automation these days. So someone downloads your freebie. With me, it's the Business Builder's Handbook. I just step them through all the things you need to do to start up. And then they receive an email when they sign up from me, with a video of me talking. And then a couple of days later, they'll get some more information from me with another video, and a few days later they'll get another one, and then they drop into my regular email marketing, where I communicate once every few weeks or so, which is not super often, but that's what I can manage at the moment. It depends if I'm promoting something or not, but the point
Mm.
is being consistent, and having that initial 3 or 4 emails that really solidifies that relationship. They get used to seeing you in their inbox. They know that what you deliver is valuable, so they open your emails. And it's that value-led marketing is just so important. So if you show up in someone's inbox straight away and you're trying to sell, all you're doing is pitching, that's a big turn off, and you'll most likely get unsubscribes, right?
Mm.
It's you do have to be selling, of course, but you've got to deliver value first. It's about demonstrating value, then selling your service and educating them about the ways you can work with them. Mm.
Definitely. And I think too, this is where I believe, startups in particular miss out, not having that email sequence, that follow up
Mm.
already set up. Because we both know that for startups in particular, most of the time, it's kind of contradictory that we go into business and we don't want to sell.
Mm-hmm.
We want people to come and buy for us, but we do not want to sell to people.
Mm-hmm.
Having this lead magnet and this email nurture sequence set up is acting as the sales process for you. It's being the salesman.
Mm.
So by the time people actually book a call or interact with you personally, like one-on-one, the hard work has been done already.
Mm.
And I think we need to really highlight the fact that by the time someone has booked a call with you through that email nurture sequence, they're really interested in what you've got to sell.
That's
Really
right.
interested. It makes it an easy conversation. You
So
haven't
much
just
easier.
stopped some random person on the street saying, hey, buy from me, buy from me. That's not it. And that's what we all don't want to do.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah, and it takes a bit of work to get it set up, but then it's an asset that you have there, being that little salesperson out on the ground, like you say, doing that nurturing, warming up your
Yeah.
leads, and it more than and like you say, the conversation you have with someone at the end of that, when they finally reach out, they're educated, they're informed, and they know exactly how they want to work with you, and the conversation is so much easier. You and I have
Yeah.
both experienced that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, I'm having to bring this episode to an end because I have child duties, it's school holidays, and it's all happening. But I love this conversation, and just, it always amazes me how so few people just don't appreciate the importance of getting these basic things set up. And I know that's something you and I both love helping people do.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
do have one more quick tip for everybody that
mhm,
I have to share, because otherwise I will forget by the time we
yes,
record our next
go
episode.
for
And
it.
it goes back to when you spoke about reaching out to people that you already know. There is one part of this conversation with our own network that I think people miss. Probably not everyone, but I know I certainly missed out on this when I first started. And that is that when you are telling people that you know what you do, it's really important to say, because most of the time we go into it thinking we're going to sell to just them. So it's
Mm,
like, oh, you're my cousin. Do you want to buy this service from me? They're totally not the right fit for what you do. But, this is part of, oh, I'm getting rejected. No one's buying from me. The key part of this conversation you have with your network is to say, if you or anybody you
you
know are
know.
interested,
Mm,
because the power is in leveraging the network you've got, not just selling to that network you've got.
that's right. Yeah, it's been clear about this is how I can help people. And if you know anyone who needs this kind of help, please send them my way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. It's a different, you're not pitching in an unsolicited way. You're simply saying, I have this thing that helps solve this problem. If you know anyone with that problem, please put them in touch with me. It's a totally different way. And like you say, you're leveraging their network and their network. So yeah, that's a really good
Yes,
point. Yeah. Sam, we're going to have to wrap it up today. We will continue this
we do.
conversation because there's so much more that comes after those things that we've talked about. But yeah, we'll keep
Yeah.
the conversation going, and we
We'll
look
do a
forward
part
to
two.
we'll do a part two. That's